Hello, my name is Salvatore Ialuna. I'm doing a video recording for the UNCC CAE study abroad trip to Western Europe. Uh, my presentation will be on Fire in the Shadows by Rob Gildea. It is a new history of the French resistance. So first off, just a brief overview of Fighters in the Shadows. Robert Gildea's book challenges the stereotype of France, and in particular the French resistance during World War II. Gildea provides the reader with a new perspective on the motivations, actions, and experiences of the French resistance fighters. Gildea showcases the resistance and the image of French politics and the national pride that France had during this time. Fighters in the Shadows allows for France and the French resistance during World War II to be brought to light and highlight the challenges of the French population under German occupation. Robert Gildea's background. He is a historian that specializes in modern France and European history. He is a professor at the University of Oxford and has extensive research experience of social and political dynamics and relations of the 20th century. So while he was actually researching this book, he spent a year in France with his daughter, and he was under a fellowship with a few other professors there in France. So he worked with them during this time, and he would go through historical texts, books, and in-person anecdotes for this research. So Gildea was motivated to challenge the existing stereotypes that surrounded the French resistance during World War II. He wanted to provide a better understanding of the motivations and experiences of the resistance fighters. And this research showcased a lesser known aspect of the resistance. Even in the writing itself, he said that he was going against the grain of set history and that some historians would help him with that as well. So France during World War II. France was occupied by German forces during World War II, following the defeat of the French military in 1940. The German occupation aimed to establish control over France for the Nazi war effort, named the Vichy regime led by Marshal Philippe Pétain. Challenges faced by the French population. The French population under German control had strict rationing, curfews, and limitations on freedom of speech. French citizens experienced the loss of civil liberties, forced labor, and the deportation of Jewish citizens to concentration camps. So something really interesting that I found through the reading of this was that it was kind of described as a civil war in France between those who would support the German regime and those who were going against it. And along that came with executions publicly and just the complete divide of the country during this time. So Fighters in the Shadows explores the motivations of the individuals who joined the resistance and who were opposed to fascism through the German occupied France. Resistance activities varied, including acts of sabotage, intelligence and information gathering, distributing anti-propaganda and aid to Allied forces. So included here is just a map that was at the start, beginning of the reading, showing the occupied France from 1940 to 44, showing the different regimes in the French territory and the territory that was occupied by Italy until 1943 for the Allied versus Axis powers. So France during World War II, the importance of the resistance in Fighters in the Shadows. Robert Gildea would go on into the experiences of French citizens and showcase their bravery and determination, highlighting their sacrifices and the crucial role played by the resistance fighters to preserve French identity and liberation. 35 resistors executed by the Germans during the final momentous days of liberation of Paris in August 1944. The resistors were young, they died, but what they embodied was invincible. They said no. No to subjection, no to dishonor, no to what belittles human beings. And this no continues to be heard after their deaths, because it is the eternal cry of human freedom against enslavement. It is that cry that we still hear today. That is a quote from the reading, and just really powerful stuff there. And so through the reading, actually going off of that quote, Gildea throughout the text, he goes on about the myth of the French resistance and rewriting that through his work. So the French resistance for France showcased the resilience and the nation's collective fight for freedom. Stereotypes portray the resistance as united from acts of sabotage, espionage, and armed resistance. The image of the resistance was shaped by French politics and national pride that played a significant role around the French resistance. To deal with the trauma of defeat, occupation, and virtual civil war, the French developed a central myth of the French resistance. This was not a fiction about something that never happened, but rather a story that served the purposes of France as it emerged from the war. So Robert Gildea's perspective. Gildea aimed to provide a comprehensive understanding of the motivations, accents, and experiences of the resistance fighters. Fighters in the Shadows acknowledges the complexities and contradictions within the resistance. While uncovering the unknown aspects of the resistance, he draws on a range of sources, including archival materials, testimonies, and historical records. Offering new insights and perspectives, Gildea challenges assumptions and will broaden the reader's knowledge of the French resistance in World War II. So just going on, continuing with the topic of the image of the French resistance, he would examine the narrative around the French resistance with the influence of the nation's pride and French politics on shaping the image of the resistance. And later on, we'll get into Charles de Gaulle, who is the president of France, and his fight as well, going against the occupation of France. So Gildea examines how post-war French government sought to showcase the legacy of the French resistance fighters. Fighters in the Shadows shows how the resistance became a symbol of French identity and pride. Gildea does this by acknowledging the acts of conflicts within the resistance that have been overlooked. So here, as I mentioned, Charles de Gaulle, Paris liberated by its own efforts, liberated by its people with the help of armies of France, with the help of all of France. That is France in combat, the one France, the true France, eternal France. So this was actually during a Paris liberated speech that he did even before France was liberated by the Allies forces. So I mean, he saw his own citizens, ordinary people, going against doing their own resistance against the occupation. So he himself, as the president of France, doing that, going out of his way to make this speech, even before they were free, is just, I mean, the gall of the guy. So themes explored in Fighters in the Shadows. Fighters in the Shadows goes into the organization and structure of different resistance networks. It explores how these networks operated, communicated, and coordinated their activities. It provides insights into the daily lives of the French population during the German occupation of France. Gildea explores how ordinary citizens rose to the occasion. And the Monument Marseillais. The Communist Party highlighted one dramatic case of martyrdom. The 27 communist hostages, including Guy Mocot, who were shot at the Chateaubriand in October 1941 in reprisal for the assassination of the fellow commandant of Nantes by a communist hit squad. A monument of 5 muscular men tied to a stake and plainly singing the Marseillaise of International was unveiled in October 1950 in the clearing where they had died. So this is just the monument and really symbolic. So to conclude on this, through this presentation, we discussed the challenges and stereotypes that go with the French resistance. By challenging the existing narratives and beliefs around the French resistance in World War II, the book in Gildea allows for a new perspective and critically analyzed period in history.